I'm Nisha, a global citizen, a musician of words, and a joy coach.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
My background in law has invited me to explore the world, to understand, analyze, observe, and even just translate very complex matters into simple, easy to understand everyday language. I love personal development. I enjoy growth, and I see that as an evolution that lent me to take a career change at 40. And I'm now a coach and a business storyteller. So I'm really pleased to be here, Obehi, and talking to you today.
Thank you so much. I love that. This conversation is really important because story is everything. Looking at business storytelling, that is even making it more interesting now. But first thing first, let's try to know you better. Where were you born and where did you grow up? Help me understand that.
I'm born and raised in Malaysia, and I've Sri Lankan heritage. Both my grandfathers come from Sri Lanka, but I'm born and raised in Malaysia. So when you say first thing, where are you? Who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Malaysian. That's the essence. And our favorite icebreaker conversation is always about food.
All right. So tell me something about food. Tell me something about your food. That is important.
It's such a colorful mix of colors, flavors, cultures, all in a pot, and how everyone has embraced each other in their cuisine and local flavors. So that's essentially Malaysia. The food is something that you can sample from breakfast all the way to supper. One of our main items is called nasi lemak, which is a coconut rice with
Oh,
5 ingredient accompaniment. So it comes with a portion of cucumbers, anchovies, a boiled or a fried egg, a sambal, which is a spicy sauce almost that goes with it. And the add-ons include, a dried chicken, fried chicken. You can even go cuttlefish, beef. The varieties are endless, or even prawns. And that is something that you can start your day with and even end your day with on that note. What I
and
like,
that is rich.
it is, but the portion, so you could have it in a small portion, like the size of your palm, wrapped in a banana leaf for your breakfast, and have it as a meal for lunch or even as a supper. So it's something we all enjoy very much and we bond over a plate. Coffees and teas are staple. And my personal favorite are noodles. And I can have noodles all day long.
Hmm.
Very different icebreaker conversation. So when you come over to the UK, the topic of interest is always about the weather. If you don't know anybody, you always start with the weather. The news takes, a couple of minutes just sharing with you different weather patterns, the flags, the winds, and it's such a sensational piece of news that goes on a daily basis, and invites you also to look into the perspective of how others view things that you may at times take for granted. In a tropical country, the sun and rain are as natural as the air and water around you. So coming here, when you kind of just crave the sun, just wanting to be outdoors, enjoying every moment of it, definitely an eye opener and an enriching experience for me.
I remember one time, I think that was a CNN publicity at the time. They will do advert on Malaysia. At the end of the advert, they would say Malaysia, truly Asia.
Yes. It's bringing home and celebrating the three main communities that we have: the Malays, Indians, and Chinese, and also all the other ethnicities that are present in the country. And something that we all celebrate together as a nation is the first point when you ask us who we are, where we are from. We always say we are Malaysians. before somebody even digs deeper and asks, which community do you belong to? What is your first language or your mother tongue and all of that? People really embrace that nationality with a lot of pride and a big smile in their heart.
That's great. That's great. All right. Now, coming to business storytelling. Do you want to tell me how you got started in business storytelling? Because that is what we are going to spend most of the time today.
I love stories. Stories are all around us, people whom we talk to, engage with. I'm an avid traveler, and everywhere I go, you're making memories, you're talking to people, just understanding how things influence each other. I've always wanted to be a writer, more of a travel journalist. So I started blogging many years back, and it was more of a hobby, an ad hoc thing. If I felt like writing a blog post, I would. And there was this voice inside me that kept asking, like, you've been saying you wanted to write, why aren't you taking this passion or dedication? So when I moved to the UK in 2020, I took it upon the effort to start and my blogging quite in a dedicated fashion, quite committed to it with posts. And I did an article series called Down, interviewing 12 women across the world, sharing their stories about how they grew sensationally. And I said, I'm going to take this even further and make Bohem Notes in 2020. So that's how the whole storytelling enterprise started. And what fascinated me is people were not aware of how much they had to share. They always looked outside, whereas I wanted to support people and give them the platform and courage to share their story. So even if they were not able to do it on their own, with my penmanship, I could guide them in a way and invite them to share this on a platform. And I think during the Growing in Lockdown later, and now my next series on Entrepreneur Your Life, talking to entrepreneurs around the world and how they choose to bring in their spirit in their day to day. It just gives people a reflection on the role models that are available around us, the stories of courage and inspiration that we can each dip into. And more than that, a sense of empowerment. So that's how the business storytelling is in place.
One thing I'm sort of thinking about now is you know that this is what you are going to do, but did you have to do anything about the skills of storytelling? Because everybody is not made the same way. For you to be able to capture people's attention and retain it, you're going to need certain skills. So tell me, if you had to learn it, how did you manage to do it properly so at least you can do it as a business? Tell me about that.
I think my training in law was a solid grounding point because you are a fact finder, you're analyzing things, you're observing, and you're quite perceptive. So you're always looking at different angles to position a particular point. So there was a lot of transferable skills already in my bag or toolkit to say to bring along in this journey. And the tagline that I've chosen for Bohem Notes is infusing soul to words because there are so many words that we can play with and so many styles of writing. But the way you want to share a person's story is that it can reach from my heart to yours. And the best way to do it is to write it authentically with originality while also capturing the essence of the person. And when they are sharing their stories with you, they're almost in a, just talking about it as if it's just happened by the way. And you can then extract, just noticing their body language or even the tone of their voice and even some of the experiences that they share, what really resonated for them in that moment. And just kind of dig a little deeper to see what was the message that they wanted to deliver, any lessons that they learned. In terms of skills, as you shared, I would say powers of observation, Um, Curiosity, because that's been a great driver to explore and asking really without judgment, but more with curiosity and of interest as to why this is so important to them. What is it that they want to share about it? And of course, with language, it's important to have some level of mastery of words so that you have more things to play with. So it's a space where you can nurture yourself to, just learn more words a day or how to apply them differently. And even using software tools so that you have some of your spell check and your kits in order. That an item that you put out there is also something that you're proud of. And again, the courage to say that it is a learning and an evolving process. Because when you look at it 2 days later, you want to change something. So it's always a growing thing. There's so many ways you could skin a cat almost. And there's so many ways you can share a piece of writing. So knowing that for today, this is enough for this story. And tomorrow it could be something else.
I want you to take me back to Malaysia. In your storytelling, how much does the kind of life that you lived when you are in Malaysia, I mean the culture of Malaysia, how much does that play in the storytelling that you do?
I think in terms of culture, it's the vivaciousness or the spirit that comes alive. There is never a dull moment in the story, and it's capturing those essence even in your everyday, something that you look forward to. I try to bring all of this into the words and the flavors. In terms of experiences, it is again the courage to be who you are. And at times when you're conforming to certain norms of society, wherever you are, this is irrespective of whether you're in Malaysia or otherwise, there are certain frameworks, I would say, that society, friends, cultures, religion guides us to. And it's about opening that with respect, with kindness, and also with an element of curiosity that, is this for me or is this not? And challenging that to a certain extent, merely to understand yourself and your own set of values and principles. So I would say, wherever I have been, lived, worked, traveled, there's always been this element that I carry with me. And hence, I say the world is my home and I'm a global citizen. So a lot of it is influenced by the perspectives, by what I've observed in these places, and what is it that I want to draw upon to bring into the storytelling element. And at the end of the day, what is it that we are writing is just stories to share. But the most important stories are the ones that we tell ourselves on a daily basis. And that's the one where I really encourage people to pay attention, to notice, and to be aware of what is it that they're telling themselves. Is it something that has been influenced by, I don't know, history that they've been carrying on for all these years? Does it really serve them, the stories that they share? Or do they want to write a different script?
Write a different script. I want you to talk about that more.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to do that? How is somebody supposed to do that, whether as an individual or in business?
It's asking, what is it that you want? What is it that you deserve? And what is it that you're excited about? I feel that a lot of it is tapping into who you are as a person. Chances are, Obehi, if I ask 1 out of 10 people, what is it that you want? 9 out of 10 would say what they don't want. Maybe one might respond and say what they do want. Try it. Just out of fun and good spirits, I've explored this with people. I'm like, what do you like? What do you want in the life? I don't like this. I don't want this. I said, my question to you is, what do you want? And you will see the people, taking time to just really immerse with that question and answer what is it that they want for themselves. So in terms of anything, it's always tapping in to see the script. And then the next thing, who is asking me to do this? Or why am I doing this? Why am I following this particular script? And how does this serve me? And what if I had no script at all? What would I be doing instead? The answers are really different, and the answers are all within us, Obehi.
How do we usually get this script that we are talking about? This is something that, of course, that some psychologists and coach, of course, like you, do talk a lot about. Now, okay, the script that are running our life. Sometimes we need to change them. Sometimes we need to rewrite them. Okay, we are not entering into deep science now of how to actually rewrite the recondition your head and all that. So I want you to help me understand, how do we get this script that run our life?
It's our experiences, is what we've been exposed to, what we've been fed with, the whole nurture, nature, environment. And I'm no psychologist to start with. I've done my master's in neuro linguistic programming. I've trained with as a transformation coach. I'm having my assessment soon, and it's all about the thoughts, the thoughts in our mind, the thoughts in our that we grew up with. For example, doing certain things a particular way, superstitions, cultures that impose, not impose, that provide these frameworks on the do's and don'ts. When we go to school, line up to your left or sit to your right, drive in a particular way. So all these start forming little scripts, little ways of being in our day to day. And at times, some of it starts influencing our mindset and how we approach a particular situation. And over time, because it's so ingrained already within us, we're almost on autopilot. Just as how is it's normal for us to get up and brush our teeth in the morning, make a cup of coffee or tea and go about doing our things. Because we've been told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You got to brush your teeth at least 2 or 3 times a day, and go about a certain way. We just do it almost as if it was so natural. But if somebody opens up to you and says, Obehi, don't need to have breakfast in the morning. You could have it at 12 o'clock. You could, brush your teeth maybe when you want to, or do something else the other way. And if you had that choice, you might want to readjust how you operate your day to day. And that's the sense of awareness when you start evaluating what are these thoughts, what are these life scripts, almost like a manual if you're driving a car. You're rewriting all of that, or you're just looking and seeing that, is this really for me or is this for somebody else? Does this still serve me now, today, in what am I doing? Or was this only intended when I was in my teenage years, for example? So it's just making that assessment. What is it that I want to pass on to the next generation, to my peers, to the community? What is the legacy then eventually we want to be lived and known by? So it is these scripts, for example, the stories, they just become ingrained.
All right, now coming back again to business and storytelling, where do you think maybe someone should start from? So maybe this is a business owner who has a business who have not yet understood that they need to tap into the power of storytelling in their business. Okay, we're basically talking of marketing here, no? So where should they start from?
Just look at their journey, I would say. Why did they start this particular business? Those powerful WH questions to celebrate and to share those moments in developing that business. I think people want to know, how did they go about it? Where did they get their ideas from? What is their 3 a.m. moment when they wake up? And what keeps inspiring them? Who are their role models? And how do they keep showing up every day for work, doing what is it that they are doing? How do they innovate? So there's a lot of content inspiration already around us, and each person approaches it in a different way. These can be shared through social posts if they are on social media, via LinkedIn, or if they would like to start a blog on their website. People communicate regularly through newsletters, video logs, whichever way that they want to share. And most importantly is to acknowledge that each one of them has a business story that is worth sharing, because each person's experience is very unique and individual. Even for yourself, Obi, starting this podcast and doing all of that and running that passion as deeply as you do, to even talk to people and inviting that story, that in itself is something to share. And even go behind the scenes to say, how did you go about it? What tools of the trade do you use? Do a lot of research as well, because that's helpful to see what platforms are working for you. Where do you find your interest gravitating? Knowing who your ideal clients are and what is it that they want to hear. And more than that, what is it you want to share with them? Because there is one thing about putting content that interests people, but it could be content that may not be satisfying for you. So it's always coming back to here and really checking in to say, why do I want to do this? And what inspires me to do this? What is it that I want to share? And then a bit of research in understanding the platforms. Which platforms do you want to show up on? Any tools to support you? So take those free trials, try, explore, test the times as well, and how much time that you can also allocate in terms of communicating with your audience or communicating your business story, and work around it with your schedule. I have a resource called Flow and Find that's available on my blog that enables people to explore ideas as well on what kind of content that they can create. There are some journaling prompts to also inspire them, and how to repurpose some of the content, because a business owner, you've got 101 things already on your plate. So it's finding a smarter way to use the same content in different ways and styles. So there's some inspiration there, with also guidance on how you can prioritize and continue to take care of yourself and the work that you put out.
Okay, now for you, in your business, how do you use storytelling? In what way and format does it become effective for you?
In my own business, it's about sharing my values. What do I stand for? What does a brand Bohem Notes stand for? It's about communicating and engaging with people. And with my clients, it's about supporting them. So it's giving them that extra pair of hands to help them communicate what the messages that they want to share with their audience. So it's understanding what they want to communicate, how they want to communicate it. Primarily, I do it through blog writing. So they have a blog, they have a piece of content, giving them some ideas around it, and how we could make that content digestible for a variety of audiences, because some audiences are learned, they are more experienced, or they have researched on their own. And now that we have Google at our fingertips, we can just ask a question and we get thousands of answers already. So how do you also communicate to somebody who has that level of experience in their kitty, but somebody who is also unaware of the topic? So striking that balance and offering suggestions to the client, but following the client lead as well in terms of where they want to go with their storytelling, and being that aid and support, so that those stories can be communicated and not lost in their day-to-day.
All right, now let's say somebody is having a doubt as to whether or not story are actually effective in their business. It can be whether for marketing, for brand building, but for the fact that you are putting out story there about you and your business, That is this person who is not yet sure. What do you say to that individual as what are the importance of storytelling in business?
I would say share, because if you touch one heart, one person with that story, that's already made a difference. Yes, there are a lot of tools out there. Yes, you can spend endless time researching, developing your story so that it is quite impactful for marketing purposes, for reasons of attracting more clients, more followers, more sales, even. But all of that is an evolution. As you learn, as you master new skills, or get the support that you need, if you have the resources to do so, in order to give you that additional flair. But what's important is knowing that you must have the courage to make a start and to understand what is it that you'd like to communicate to your audience, to your people, and knowing that your story is worth sharing. Your story deserves to be said, to be communicated. How you want to put it out, whether it is a short caption, a short social media post, even, but to just go ahead, to have the courage to make the mistakes and to grow from it because you are human. So don't be pressurized, if I could say that, by all these additional noise sometimes around you that says, you've got to master your SEO, you've got to get everything in place perfect before you can put a story out. Put it out, test it. If you're not happy with it, take it down. It doesn't matter. And if you want, start small. That's how I did it. I started with my blog. I kept it private. I put it out there to see if how it looked, how it appeared in the screen. And then I shared it with people to see if there was even interest in them reading the story and how they responded to it. And most importantly, how did I feel sharing that story? With the other tools, you learn them over time and you can always get the support to guide you on that. There are many people around there you can source for them.
Thank you for that. You see, when you were talking before, you did say that you need to understand whether the story, because you could be putting that story there that people will love, no, they like to see it. A good example would be these days, people like a lot of comedy skit because they just want to laugh, though. But at the end of the day, you that is creating the content need to also know whether that content is going to be helpful to you or not, or you are just bringing out the content just because you want to create content, So that is where I'm actually going there with how do you know whether the kind of story you are creating is useful to you or is helpful to you, let's put it that way, to the growth of your business or not. In this case, of course, it helps you to know whether you should continue to create the same content because you are going to pay your bill, you have expenses for the business. You don't just want to start creating things that are not useful to you. So help me with that.
So in mine, it was very much entwined with my brand and also who I am as a person, showing up, the face behind the brand. So with the blog, it was called Bohemian Crossing. So Bohem, mainly my Bohemian spirit, and Crossing was the people whom I met along the way. And was also a journey of personal development. And I illustrated it with as a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. So it was always about transformation. And that also allowed the playfulness in language because it also displayed my growth and how I was exploring different styles of storytelling, be it poetry, be it travel writing, be it now the stories of women and empowerment. And as I took on Bohem Notes as an enterprise, I understood that I really wanted to continue with the sense of empowerment, not just for myself, but for other people. So that's the essence and the message that I continue to connect with as I share my story. So I have that at the back of my mind that I'm sharing this with this intent So knowing that helps me with my parameters almost, that this is the message and this is the way I'm moving forward in evolving my stories. That also guides me in terms of my future projects and even the partners that I want to work with in supporting the storytelling. So that's how I go about it. I did not want the pressure of creating content, which I felt very early on in my business. That, you got to show up, you got to spend X many hours on socials, you got to have content out every single time. But it felt very heavy on my shoulders. I spent hours doing graphics and on some platforms and trying to come up with content. But after a while, it just felt very hard, and it was difficult almost, and I didn't like what I was putting out. So I started taking breaks from social media and just rethinking, why did I want to approach storytelling, and what is the whole purpose of this message anyway? Is it just to tick off a checklist that I've done 5 pieces of content for this week? Or is it something really valuable that I want to share, not just for myself, but with for somebody else? And that guides me. So different people work on different parameters as well. So I would say, I keep encouraging this: know who you are as a person, what is it that you want to stand for, who are your clients that you are connecting with, that you want to send this message out to, and have that intent behind what is it that you're doing, because you want to do everything with joy. And more than anything, don't be beaten up by the pressures or the expectations or even the competition that this is what your peers are doing. Be inspired and find your own rhythm and work with it.
Thank you for that. That is valuable. All right. So storytelling, of course, I want to believe that of different type. I don't know which one do you play with the more. Is it in digital storytelling? Is it in writing? Is it in graphic? Is it in infographic? Are you doing video, audio? Let me understand what type of storytelling you apply more in your business, and maybe what you would recommend for other people based on your experience.
For me personally, I've been more in digital storytelling. I think blogging is where I see a lot of my strength that lies, because you could take it on in any format. You can play around with the length of words as well and how you position that across. I support that with clients, and with some, I also assist with their newsletter production, some of their social posts. With social media, it really depends how you want to go about it. I haven't taken time to understand the algorithms, and Obehi, I just really do what my heart pleases in that moment. So it's having a strategy that works for you. So as I keep saying, understand who you are as a person and how you want to show up. So for me, I found digital storytelling quite helpful. I'm also part of the Cardiff Writers Circle to nurture other sides of storytelling myself, whether it is microfiction, fiction, poetry. And it was a nice, safe space for me to also get feedback, to explore different ways of sharing something. And they've been such an encouraging community. So find these spaces wherever you are, where you can have the courage to listen for your feedback, to even share your stories in a very safe space, to get the support that you need before you even go out into the public space. So you can look into, I would give that as a strong recommendation, to look for different groups or clubs where you can do this, and start small so that you also know how you want to grow and nurture that growth as you go along. So, and have faith, and really don't beat yourself up with a lot of pressure, because it's really not it's not worth it, not worth your time, and it takes the the creativity, and the satisfaction out of you sharing your story.
What about maybe how to learn this skill? Because we didn't make mention of this before. For people that are maybe getting started, what do you recommend for them and how to improve their own skills for storytelling and maybe for their business too?
Reading, or if you're a reader like myself, I found audiobooks extremely helpful. I play them in the background and you just listen, you notice how different people have different styles. Taking walks and really being aware of your surroundings, like looking at the color of things, of trees, and what else do you notice apart from just the color green, for example? Does it evoke any sense of emotion? How could you position something in a different way? Language is another beautiful toolkit to play with. What are new words that you could try them in your everyday? If when somebody asks you how you are and you just say, I feel great, is there another way for you to describe that emotion at that time? If nice is the word that you use quite often, pick something else. So introduce this vocabulary into your talk. And more than that, notice how you communicate with yourself. What kind of language, emotions that you are bringing in as you have your own self talk. Evaluate that on a daily basis because language is really powerful in the art of storytelling. So, how you approach your feedback, how you offer that feedback to others, and take that as part of your learning process and be inspired, be really curious, and really notice, just open up all your senses. So, with your sense of smell, your sense of taste, your sense of touch, what else can you experience in that moment? And how would you articulate that in a sentence? So, these are daily tools that you could use to build in that vocabulary, that experience, and that power of observation. Look at it from different sides. If the cup is red, for example, from this angle, Obehi, you might see it as a completely different color. You could notice the sun's reflection on it. So, it's just seeing different things. I know I'm using a cup as an example, but it's just seeing things from different perspectives. What would a person in this role would say to this situation? All of this gives you not just perspective, but ideas on writing from a third person's point of view, for example, writing from a character's point of view. And the internet, again, is home for a lot of great resources. So you could always look up, find blogs, find, what do you call this, topics that you're interested in, what you'd like to know more of. And that's how you just start developing a niche as well in terms of your area of writing or storytelling. And most importantly, have fun with it, play, experiment, and notice again what works, what doesn't, what comes quite natural to you. And if there were areas that you were interested, but you didn't have the skill at the particular time, where could you seek more?
Now, because all of us don't know everything, we all learn from each other. Of course, especially maybe when we are just getting started, there are those who are ahead of us who we learn from. This also is a good thing. But from you, I'm trying to understand who would you recommend there as maybe a good storyteller for business that people should follow? Who is your hero out there? Help me understand this. And maybe why.
I love Oprah. She's such a fabulous storyteller, and she also invites people to share their story with such courage. I love Mary Folio, and her book "Everything Is Figure Outable" is definitely a mantra and a must read that you can just be doing anything. And if you don't know, you figure it out. It's not the end of the road. There's so many people to turn to. I'll perhaps share a list on some of my favorites. I love Paulo Coelho for his he just takes you to a different world with an almost a spiritual awakening, the way he shares his stories. So there are lots of books, and Elif Shafak, one of my favorite books to date. It's The 40 Rules of Love, which is a tale of past and present, and it goes through Rumi's philosophy and how his journey of becoming the poet that he is today. I'm naturally drawn to books that have a philosophical nature behind it. And I think that also lends its way to the way I say my stories. And I guess with my ethos, infusing soul to words, it's almost on that arena. And these are some of my favorites. But listen to a variety. That's something that I'm aspiring to do now more of. And listening to more audiobooks to get a flavor of how different people are writing things. How do they share that? And I find that really, really helpful.
All right. Now, let's look at you. When you take up a story for your business to write, because you are writing more than maybe doing video storytelling or audio storytelling. Tell me, what is the strategy for your writing? How do you write a good story that works for your business? How should people approach it?
The key structure, a beginning, middle, and end, and also understanding some of the messages that you'd like to deliver in this piece of story, and how do you want to position that? As they say, starting off with a hook, something that really introduces or gets the attention of the reader when you start. How do you build that journey across, having a climax or, just a key point, whether it is a challenge or an achievement that you want to celebrate, a perspective that you want to introduce, and the end. More in my journey, it's about what did I learn, how did I grow from this, what am I taking away as a summary. This is typically the format that I have been approaching my stories with, especially with sharing business journeys of people and also stories of empowerment. How did people rise through a particular situation? And with clients, it's in terms of what messages that they are communicating to the client. And then it ends with a call to action, how they can be connected with or how they can get in touch for more information. So it's really noticing what type of story that you're sharing and then following a structure that fits around it. What I'd also encourage is to look at the words that you have put out on a piece of content and seeing, could you say it in lesser words so that each word that is on paper has that maximum impact. So pulling out all those filler words like really, just, very, they take up so much space. And when you have that word count, you need to write something within 100 words, 120 words, 150, for example. It really forces you to pick out things that don't serve a purpose. So when you write something, start playing with that. Look at what is it that you've put out and see if I extract some of these filler words out, what could I replace it with instead? How could I select another word that is more impactful to actually convey the emotion? And am I just telling them what's going on, or am I showing? It's like, how do you go about approaching it? So there are different ways that you could adapt and explore.
Thank you for that. Um, Say people want to connect with you now and they want to benefit from the services that you render. Um, in fact, you didn't even explain that. I want you to explain what kind of service do you render to people in your business?
So I offer content writing support, whether in terms of blog posts, so you can get support with writing your blogs. I can do newsletters or even social media posts for you to share with your audience. And you can always book an hour with me if you just want to explore ideas. That's something we can talk about as well. You may have um, a lot of things on your plate, and you just want somebody to bounce ideas with to see how you could approach it, how you could repurpose some of your content. So that's something you could also connect with me. And of course, in terms of your other personal storytelling, now as the Joy Coach, I offer a set of coaching sessions where you could really revisit some of the stories that you've been telling yourself and having the courage to rewrite them or revisit them and say them in a different way. And all of this information is available on my website, bohemnotes.com.
Is there any other area people can find you? I want you to use this few seconds to connect with people. Tell them how to connect with you.
Find me on Instagram, Facebook, not so much available on Twitter. And so on Instagram and Facebook, you can find me as Bohem Notes. You can also look me up on LinkedIn as Nisha Harichandran. And my blog is available for all of you. No subscription necessary. All the content is there for you to read, absorb, and enjoy. And it's called bohemiancrossing.blog.
All right, Nisha. Now, I want you to recommend something for people that are into business and they want to use storytelling. How can they be successful? What is your recipe for them? What is your recommendation? Please go.
Be yourself, because there's nobody else like you, and tell the story in the language most natural to you. So really connect with who you are as a person, and that's your recipe for success, because there's no one out there like you who can do it the way you do. So truly know where your strength lies and just go gold with that. And speaking on reconnecting with yourself, I'm running a workshop in collaboration with Sarichita, a fitness coach. It's going to be a free event on Zoom on the 23rd of July, Saturday. And tickets are available on Eventbrite. We are having a 1-hour session talking to you about how you can reconnect with yourself, know yourself better, and share better stories about you. So I'll pop up the link to you, Obehi, and I would love if you could come and join us and pick up some tips there as well.
Thank you for that. That's great. I love that. I'm going to be there. All right. Now, what will be your final statement here to conclude the conversation that we have discussed today about storytelling for business?
One of my favorite mantras, which is rock your concert. It's your stage, your life, your story, your approach, and it's you who is shining. So have the courage that you matter, know that you are enough, and just go for it. Feel free to reach out if you'd like any support, or if you want to bounce off any ideas. Connect with me on socials and just start engaging. And it'll be lovely to hear your thoughts as well around this.
All right. That's lovely. I appreciate that. Is there any other thing you would like to say to add to that?
Adding to that, I'll just say have fun with it. Really take off the pressure from your shoulders. You're carrying enough already. So approach it with ease and curiosity. That's something I really, really invite you to look into more of. And of course, a sense of respect, because everybody has a point of view and has a version of how they would like to present their story. So just be yourself, and let nobody else tell you what you should do. That's all. Thank you.
All right. That's lovely. I appreciate that. Is there any other thing you would like to say to our audience?
Adding to that, I'll just say have fun with it. Really take off the pressure from your shoulders. You're carrying enough already. So approach it with ease and curiosity. That's something I really invite you to look into more of. And of course, a sense of respect, because everybody has a point of view and has a version of how they would like to present So read it with respect, view it with respect, and also give your comments and share it with respect. But most importantly, also knowing your style and connecting with who you are so you can deliver that piece of content while staying true to you.
That's super. Stay true to yourself. Thank you so much, Nisha. I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Obehi, and all the very best to you.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.